The gates of the Vale estate opened with the same slow, mechanical grace I remembered from childhood, steel curling inward like a reluctant welcome. I stood outside them, gripping my daughter Lily's tiny hand, my suitcase balanced awkwardly at my feet, trying to swallow the last of my pride before stepping inside. I had sworn I would never return. The mansion rose ahead of us, 3 stories of stone and glass, balconies trimmed in white iron, tall windows reflecting a gray afternoon sky. I had grown up behind those windows. I had once believed they meant safety. Now they felt like judgment. "Mommy," Lily whispered, tilting her face up to me. "Is this where you lived when you were little?" "Yes," I managed, forcing a smile. For a long time, her eyes widened with innocent wonder. She saw a castle. I saw a courtroom. We walked up the steps together. Each one felt heavier than the last. My heels clicked against the marble porch, the sound echoing too loudly in the stillness. Before I could knock, the front door opened. My mother stood there, perfect as always. Silver, blonde hair styled into a sleek twist. A pale silk blouse without a wrinkle. Her eyes swept over me quickly. My worn coat, the scuffed suitcase, the exhaustion I couldn't hide. Then her gaze shifted downward. To Lily, she didn't smile. "Alara," she said coolly, "we weren't expecting you." "I know," I replied softly. I tried calling. My father appeared behind her, tall and stern as ever, cufflinks glinting beneath the chandelier light. And then Camille, my younger sister, arms folded, expression already sharpened with disapproval. The foyer felt colder than the autumn air outside. "I wouldn't come if I had another option," I said, stepping inside before my courage failed. "I lost my job last month. The cafe closed. My lease ended. I just need a little time to figure things out." My father's jaw tightened. "You should have planned better," as if I had scheduled the economy to collapse, as if I had penciled in hardship between piano lessons and Sunday brunch. Lily squeezed my hand harder. My mother's voice dropped to a delicate whisper. "How long are we talking about?" "A few weeks," I said quickly. "I'll find work. I always do." Camille exhaled sharply, as if the idea alone exhausted her. Her eyes moved to Lily again, lingering this time. And then she said it, "We have no space for her." The words hung in the air like smoke. "For her, not for you." "Not for both of you, just her." I blinked, unsure I had heard correctly. "There are 8 bedrooms. That's not what she means," my father said flatly. Camille uncrossed her arms and gestured around the pristine foyer. "This house isn't suitable for children. It's quiet. It's curated. We host events. She's 5. I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to steady it. "She reads books and draws pictures. She's not a hurricane. She's still a child," Camille replied. "Children break things. They spill. They scream." Lily hid partially behind my coat, peeking out with wide, confused eyes. I knelt beside her. "Go stand by the stairs for a minute, sweetheart," I whispered gently. She obeyed without a word. I stood back up and faced my family, the people who had once toasted to my piano recitals, who had thrown lavish parties for Camille's promotions, who had celebrated every achievement that aligned with their expectations. But when I fell in love with a man who didn't come from old money, when I chose a life outside their blueprint, when I became pregnant before a wedding invitation had been mailed, I became cautionary tale. "You're really saying there's no room?" I asked quietly. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "We can't rearrange our lives for your decisions, Alara." There it was, your decisions, as if Lily were a consequence instead of a child. As if love were a mistake. A long silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I realized then that I wasn't just asking for shelter. I was asking for acceptance, and they had none to give. I walked to the staircase and picked Lily up into my arms. She wrapped herself around me instinctively, small and warm and trusting. "We'll figure it out," I murmured into her hair. My father didn't stop me. My mother didn't soften. Camille didn't look guilty. The door opened again behind us as I stepped back onto the porch. It began to rain soft at first, then steady. "Mommy," Lily whispered as we descended the steps. Did I do something wrong? The question shattered something inside me. I held her closer, letting the rain soak through my coat. "No, baby, I said, my voice breaking despite every effort to stay strong. You didn't do anything wrong. But as the gates slowly closed behind us, sealing off the mansion and the people inside it, I finally understood something I had refused to see for years. In that house, there had never truly been space for me either. 3 weeks after the gates closed behind us, Lily and I were living above a bakery on Ashford Street. The apartment was barely large enough for a bed, a fold-out couch, and a narrow table pressed against the window. The walls were thin, the pipes groaned at night, and the hallway smelled faintly of cinnamon and sugar. Every morning at 5, the scent of rising dough drifted up through the floorboards. Lily called it the Cupcake Castle. I let her. Because when you're 5, magic is easier to find. I found work within days-long shifts at a cafe 2 bus stops away. My hands ached from carrying trays and washing cups. My feet throbbed by the time I climbed the stairs each night. But Lily greeted me every evening like I had returned from conquering dragons instead of refilling coffee. We made routines out of almost nothing. Macaroni dinners by the window, storybooks borrowed from the library, blankets hung from chairs to make forts, laughter stitched through exhaustion. Still at night, when Lily slept, doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if I had made reckless decisions? What if I had failed her? I would watch her small chest rise and fall and remind myself, survival is not failure. The knock came on a Thursday afternoon, 3 precise raps, not hurried, not hesitant. I had just returned from my shift, apron still folded over my arm. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring a picture of a garden with purple trees and a yellow sky. Stay here, I told her softly. When I opened the door, a tall man stood in the narrow hallway. His suit was navy, pressed so sharply it looked untouched by the world. Silver, framed glasses rested neatly on his nose. He held a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. "Ms. Elara Vale?" he asked. "Yes, my name is Thomas Halbrook. I am the acting attorney for the estate of your late grandmother, Margaret Eleanor Vale." For a moment the hallway tilted. My grandmother, the only person in that mansion who had ever defended me, the only one who had held Lily without hesitation, who had kissed her cheeks and whispered that she had my eyes. "She passed 6 months ago," I said quietly. "The funeral was private." "Yes," he replied gently, "and before her passing, she amended her will." My pulse quickened. "I don't understand. May I come in?" I hesitated, glancing back at Lily. Then I stepped aside. The apartment seemed even smaller with him inside. Too humble, too exposed, he removed a folder from his portfolio and placed it carefully on the table by the window. "I am here regarding a trust." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "You must be mistaken. My parents handle the estate. Not anymore." He opened the folder. 2 years ago, your grandmother established an irrevocable trust. She transferred significant assets into it. The named beneficiary is Lily Ann Vale." The room went silent except for the distant hum of traffic outside. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "What did you say? Your daughter?" He repeated calmly. "Is the sole beneficiary." My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the table. "That doesn't make sense. My father, Camille, were not informed of the changes, Mr. Halbrook said carefully. "Your grandmother requested confidentiality." Lily wandered closer, clutching her crayon. "Mommy, who's that?" I crouched and pulled her gently against my side. "This is a friend of Grandma's." He gave her a small nod. "Your great-grandmother loved you very much." Lily smiled shyly. I looked back at him. "What exactly is in this trust?" He paused, as though measuring the weight of what he was about to say. "The Vale estate, including the primary residence. The air left my lungs. The mansion?" I asked faintly. "Yes, as well as several investment accounts, properties, and business holdings." My mind raced back to the foyer. To Camille's voice, "We have no space for her." My grandmother had known. She had seen the way they treated me. The distance, the disapproval, the unspoken shame. "And there are conditions?" I asked. "Yes, you are named trustee until Lily turns 25. You will oversee all assets on her behalf, effective immediately upon formal reading. Ownership authority transfers under the trust's terms." "Effective immediately," he nodded. "The reading is scheduled in 3 days." All primary heirs are required to attend. Primary heirs, my father, my mother, Camille, they thought the estate belonged to them. They had sent us away into the rain, and now, why? I whispered, more to myself than to him. Mr. Halbrook slid a sealed envelope across the table. She left a personal letter. It is addressed to you. My fingers hovered over it but didn't open it yet, because suddenly the small apartment didn't feel like a symbol of failure. It felt like a turning point. Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mommy, are we in trouble? I pulled her into my arms and pressed my cheek to her hair. No, I said softly, staring at the envelope bearing my grandmother's handwriting. I don't think we are. Outside, the afternoon light shifted golden against the window, and for the first time since the gates had closed behind us, I felt something unfamiliar stir inside my chest. Not fear, not shame, but possibility. The mansion looked exactly the same the morning of the reading, tall white columns, polished windows. The same iron gates that had shut behind me in the rain now opened without resistance, as if nothing had ever happened, but everything had. I stepped out of the taxi with Lily's hand in mine. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one with tiny embroidered flowers along the hem. I had braided her hair that morning, wanting her to look as bright as she deserved to feel. My palms were damp, not from fear, from anticipation. The front door opened before we could knock. My mother stood there, again immaculate and composed, though faint shadows rested beneath her eyes this time. Alara, she said stiffly. I nodded. We won't take long. Her gaze fell to Lily, who held my hand confidently. Instead of hiding behind me, my father was waiting in the drawing room, standing beside the fireplace like a judge about to deliver a verdict. Camille sat on the cream velvet sofa, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone as if this were an inconvenience wedged between brunch and pilates, and near the long oak table stood Mr. Halbrook, calm and precise as ever, a leather folder placed neatly before him. Thank you all for attending, he began. The chandelier above us glittered faintly, reflecting fractured light across the walls. I remembered twirling beneath it as a child while my grandmother laughed from her armchair. That memory felt closer today. We are here to formally read the final amendments to the estate of Margaret Eleanor Vale. Mr. Halbrook continued. My father cleared his throat. Yes, yes. Let's proceed. There was confidence in his tone, ownership, expectation. Mr. Halbrook opened the folder. As per the revised will dated March 14th, 2 years prior to Mrs. Vale's passing, the rustle of paper seemed unbearably loud. The entirety of the Vale estate, including the primary residence located at Camille interrupted, were aware of the property details. Mr. Halbrook did not look up. It shall be placed in irrevocable trust for the sole and exclusive benefit of Lillian Vale. Silence. Complete, utter. Camille blinked. I'm sorry, what? My mother's hand gripped the arm of her chair. There must be a mistake. There is no mistake. Mr. Halbrook replied evenly. The documents were signed, witnessed, and notarized. My father's voice hardened. My mother would never leave the estate to a child. She did, the lawyer said, with deliberate intent. He slid copies of the paperwork across the table. Camille snatched hers first, scanning rapidly. The color drained from her face. This is absurd, she snapped. She was 5'4" at the time of signing. Mr. Halbrook corrected gently. My heart pounded in my ears. Mr. Halbrook continued reading. Ms. Alara Vale is hereby appointed trustee of all assets until the beneficiary reaches the age of 25. All property rights, management authority, and residential control transfer immediately under trust governance. My father stood abruptly. Immediately. Yes, Mr. Halbrook confirmed. Effective today. The room felt smaller now, tighter. This house belongs to Lily, he said clearly. I watched the words settle over them, the same house where there had been no space. Camille looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since I walked in. You knew about this, she accused. I met her gaze steadily. I found out 3 days ago. And you didn't think to tell us, my mother whispered. I almost laughed. You didn't think to shelter us, but I didn't say it. Mr. Halbrook reached into his folder again. There is also a personal letter from Mrs. Vale to be read aloud. My throat tightened. He unfolded the paper carefully. To my family, he read, if you are hearing this, then I am no longer here to say what I should have said sooner. The air felt charged. I have watched choices made in this home that value image over love. I have seen judgment where there should have been grace. My great-granddaughter Lily carries no fault for the pride of others. Therefore, I leave the estate to her, in hope that this house may one day be filled with kindness instead of quiet superiority." Camille's face burned crimson. My mother looked as though she had been struck. My father's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Mr. Halbrook folded the letter. "There is one final clause," he added. "Current residents are granted 60 days to vacate unless alternative arrangements are made by the trustee." All eyes turned to me, not as the disappointment, not as the reckless daughter, but as the decision maker. The weight of it pressed against my chest, but it did not crush me. Lily squeezed my hand. "Mommy." I knelt slightly beside her. "It's okay." My father exhaled sharply. "Ilara, we can discuss reasonable terms." Camille's tone shifted instantly, softer, calculated. "We're family, family." The word felt foreign now. I stood straight. "You have 60 days. I said calmly, nothing more, no shouting. No bitterness, just certainty. For the first time in my life, the chandelier light did not feel like judgment. It felt like clarity, and as the silence settled heavily over the room, I realized something undeniable. The house had finally found its rightful heir. And they were standing 5 feet tall beside me. The day we moved back into the mansion, the sky was impossibly blue. Not dramatic, not stormy, just open. Lily stood at the gates holding my hand, bouncing slightly on her toes as movers carried in modest furniture. Nothing extravagant, nothing chosen to impress. Just pieces that felt like us. The gates opened slowly, almost ceremoniously. "Mommy," she whispered, eyes wide, "it looks bigger now." "It's the same size," I said softly. But it didn't feel the same. The silence that once felt suffocating now felt like possibility. My parents had left 2 days earlier. They didn't argue when the 60 days ended. Pride kept them from begging. Pride also kept them from apologizing. Camille had sent a carefully worded message about staying connected, as if nothing had fractured. I responded politely. Distance can be civil. As Lily stepped through the front door, her shoes clicked lightly against the marble floors. The echo rang out through the foyer. She froze, then she spun in a circle. "There's so much space," she laughed. Her voice traveled upward toward the chandelier and bounced back brighter. I closed my eyes for just a second and let myself feel it. Not victory, not triumph, relief. The house that once rejected her now belonged to her. But ownership wasn't the real change. Purpose was. I didn't want these rooms to become monuments to revenge. I didn't want Lily growing up surrounded by reminders of bitterness. I wanted transformation, so we began to renovate, not the structure was already grand. We changed the intention. The formal dining room, once used for silent dinners and strategic conversations, became a community space. Long tables replaced polished ones. Comfortable chairs replaced delicate antiques. The ballroom, which had hosted charity galas filled with people who never noticed the staff, was turned into a learning center. Bright walls, bookshelves, art supplies, computers. The 8 bedrooms Camille once claimed were too precious for a child became transitional living spaces. For single mothers, for children who needed a safe pause in their lives. I named it the Margaret Vale Foundation, in honor of the only person who had seen love more clearly than legacy. When the first mother arrived, tired eyes, 2 suitcases, a little boy clinging to her coat. I felt my throat tighten. I recognized that look, fear mixed with stubborn strength. "You're safe here," I told her gently, and this time the words were true. The staff asked if I wanted a plaque placed near the entrance to acknowledge the trust, the inheritance, the generosity. I wrote the words myself. In this house, there is always space. No gold embellishments, no dramatic statement. Just truth. My family heard about the foundation, of course. Word travels quickly in social circles, built on appearances. My mother sent flowers the week we opened. Camille posted a carefully curated message online about supporting meaningful causes. They wanted proximity to the goodness. I allowed it at a distance because revenge isn't loud. It doesn't slam doors or raise voices. It builds something better in the place of what tried to break you. One evening, a few months after reopening the mansion, Lily and I sat in the garden. The air smelled of roses and fresh grass. Children's laughter floated from the playground we had installed near the east wing. She leaned against me, her small fingers playing with the bracelet on my wrist. "Mommy, yes, baby. Why didn't Grandma and Grandpa want me here before?" The question was softer now. Less confused, more thoughtful, I considered my answer carefully. "Sometimes," I said slowly, "people care too much about how things look and not enough about how they feel." She thought about that. "But we care about how people feel, right?" I smiled and kissed the top of her head. "Always." She nodded, satisfied, then jumped up and ran toward the other children, her laughter lifting into the evening air. I watched her for a long time. The mansion glowed behind us, lights warm against the twilight sky, not cold, not intimidating, alive. My parents had lost a house, I had gained a mission. They measured wealth in square footage and reputation. I measured it in the way a mother's shoulders relaxed when she realized she could stay another month. In the way children slept peacefully in rooms once considered too perfect for fingerprints. That was the true inheritance. Not marble floors, not chandeliers, but space, space to grow, space to heal, space to belong. And as Lily's laughter echoed through the gardens that once had no room for her, I realized something profound. The sweetest revenge was never about taking something away. It was about proving we never needed their permission to build something greater.